Hi guys, it's Yay for Yarn, and today I'm going to show you how to make the mattress stitch in seaming your knits. And you can do this with either hand knit or machine knit pieces of stockinette stitch. I have some strips that I made on my Addi machine, my Addi Knitting Machine, and they are about 5 inches wide in reality, but they curl a lot when you let go of them. So I'm going to kind of spread mine out a little bit here. And I have a yarn needle. This is the one that came with my Addi machine, threaded with a very long piece of yarn, because these are very long strips. So I need a long enough strand of yarn to get all the way to the end of my strips, plus extra. Now, mattress stitch is totally invisible from the right side. So I'm using a totally different color of yarn so that you can see it very well when I'm stitching it. I do not have a knot in the end of my yarn. It's just a cut end. There is no knot here at all. So to work mattress stitch, I'm going to start at the very bottom edge of my strip, and I'm going to uncurl the edge that I'm seaming so that it lies flat, and it won't stay like this for very long, but I'm going to uncurl it just for the moment. And as you can see right here, this very first column of stitches is kind of distorted because it's an edge stitch. Every one of these is an edge stitch. So if you separate the edge stitch from the next column of stitches, there are little horizontal bars in between them that you can't see unless you kind of dig them out, because they lay concealed between the two columns of stitches. So I want to pick up those bars in between the stitches, and I'm going to start at the very bottom, very bottom, and I'm going to pick up the first two horizontal bars of yarn in between the edge stitch column and the next column of stitches. I'm going to stitch through both of those. And I'm going to leave a tail here so that once I'm finished, then I can tie it off and not have any loose tails of yarn hanging. So now I'm going to pick up the edge from the other side, the other piece that I'm seaming, and I'm going to do the same thing. This column right here, this is the very first one, is the edge stitch column. This one is the next stitch after that. So I'm going to pick up the horizontal bars in between those two columns of stitches, and I'm going to pick up 2 horizontal bars per stitch every time. You can do 1 if you like, but it is a little bit smoother and faster to do 2 at a time. And I'm going to stitch through that as well. And then I'm going to go back to this column, and if you stretch it out, you can really see the horizontal bars. I'm going to skip the first 2 that I've already done, and I'm going to go back into the same hole that my green yarn is coming out of from the previous stitch, and I'm going to pick up 2 more bars, 2 more horizontal bars. And stitch through that. And you don't have to pull it real tight, because we don't pull it tight until we get to the end. So I'm going to come back to the other side again, the left side, and I'm going to go back into the same space that my yarn came out of from the last stitch on this side, and I'm going to pick up 2 more horizontal bars. And I'm going to do the same thing again on this side. And again on this side. And I'm going to keep doing that as long as my seam is, until I am totally finished with the seam and all the way to the end of my strips, which is quite a long way, so I won't bore you with that. But Once you get to the end, let's pretend I'm at the end, then you would take your seaming yarn and you would pull on it till it tightens up, closes up the seam, and you don't have any gap there in between those two stitches. And you can't see the green yarn at all unless you flip it over and uncurl those columns of edge stitches. But naturally those edge stitches curl so that they lay flat up against the back of the fabric and you really can't see the green yarn. And this also prevents them from curling from the right side because they are seamed up against each other and they both want to curl to the back. So they can't because they're seamed so tightly up against each other. So they lay perfectly flat all the way down, which is really what I need because these strips curl so much when they're not seamed that they really need to be seamed so that they don't curl. And once you have done a portion of your seam, which you do this in sections, you do a section however long you want, and then you tighten it, and then you do another section and you tighten it. So I'm going to do another section. I'm going to just pull these two apart a little bit at the top, find the hole that I was just in on the right side, and pick up the next two horizontal bars. And come back to this side, pick up the next two horizontal bars. And this is the same continuous process all the way to the end of your seam. And then when you're finished, you can make a knot at both ends and tie off your yarn tails and trim them, or better yet, weave them in so that they do not come unraveled. And that is how you work the mattress stitch to seam 2 pieces of stockinette stitch knitting. See you in my next video. Bye.